Social Justice Commission and our leader, Chantal, and the team. We just want to welcome you here. We're glad you to be a part of this experience. And we know that a voteless people is a powerless people. So we want to encourage you to exercise your rights. Blessings on our candidates. In Jesus' name.
I'm a little short, so I'm going to now introduce our timekeepers and also our moderator. Our timekeeper is Karen Hatch and Patrice Fontenot. Our moderator will be Nakia Collins Bushnell. So I'll hand it off to her. I want to say one thing. Delta Sigma Theta is social action, and our vote is our voice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fry. My name is Nakia Collins Bushnell, and we are grateful to have each one of you here participating with us to hear from our treasurer candidate, Mr. Dustin Granger. Thank you for your participation as well. For today's format, we're going to change things just a little bit. Dustin and I will have a personal conversation just to make things a little bit more intimate, where we can talk through his true desires, his passion, his goals, and the way forward. Is everyone okay with that? Absolutely. Thank you. If you have any questions, you are more than welcome to solicit those questions from the audience. You can write a little note, walk it right up here to me, and we'll get the question out. Okay? Thank you so much. And Dustin, if you'd like to start, you are more than welcome to go ahead and have an opening statement.
How's everybody doing? Thanks for having me. Sorry I'm late. Giselle said I can come around 10:15 because we thought other people were going to be here. So sorry y'all had to wait. I got to spend a little bit extra time with my little girls, so that was kind of nice because I'm on the road a lot. So my name is Dustin Granger, and I'm running to be your next state treasurer. Who wants to know what is wrong with our economy in Louisiana? Anybody? Because we hear it all the time, our economy is in trouble. But, I've been looking at our economy. We're completely upside down from what I've discovered. I've been a financial advisor for 20 years. And during the financial crisis of 2008, everything I thought about economics was kind of flipped upside down. I said to myself, how could this happen in America? How could a crisis like this happen that brought our economy to its knees, and the worldwide economy to its knees? So I went on a deep dive of what causes recessions and depressions and things like that. I discovered that there was more than one depression in America, besides just the Great Depression. It's happened many times throughout history. So I kind of, I looked in and researched what causes these things, and how do you come out of these? How do you have a good recovery out of these? So I studied both of those, and I noticed early on that there were some simple patterns that were happening over and over again. It was no surprise. And it was also no surprise how to come out of these things. Simple things that we sometimes forget. And what I've noticed in Louisiana is we're in a classic case of trickle-down economics in this state. Does anybody know what trickle-down economics is? Put it simply, trickle-down economics is the thought of, giving all the benefits to the people at the top, whether they're wealthy individuals or big corporations, with the thought that it'll trickle on down to the rest of us. Well, it's a sham. And we've been knowing this for 100 years. Economists have been knowing that it's a sham. But we've been doing it anyway in this state, and it takes a lot of different forms. The way it usually starts is giving just major tax cuts, tax breaks, and giveaways to the people at the top. It happens slowly at first, and we see it in this state all the time. We've reduced the top ends of our income tax brackets. We've given away things with ITEP, the Industrial Tax Exemption Program, where a lot of these companies basically pay no taxes. And what this leads to, and I say it's by design, because it leads to budget crunches, constant budget crunches in our state, which is what they want, because that gives them a chance to say, oh, we're in a budget crunch, let's cut things, okay? And they usually call it, well, let's cut government. Government's too bloated. But what I've discovered is government is me and you. We are the government. And when they say that, they mean cutting you. Because what happens is they cut public investment in people. Health, education, access, infrastructure, opportunity. These all are on the chopping block. And then they cut it so much as they're able to, and then to fill the gap, they usually raise taxes on the working class, and we see it through sales taxes. And that's how we got to where we are, where we have the highest sales tax in the nation. And then what else it leads to is corporate lobby control of our government. And we see that right now. You can just look at the campaign finance reports. A lot of them came out a day or two ago, and you can see a lot of individuals have max out contributions from all kinds of shell companies, $5,000 max outs, to the from the wealthy individuals and all their various companies, because you can have 20 different companies and give out max outs to all of them. And then that controls the government. You know, who is actually running it whenever these people need to get reelected, and who's funding them, you know, because it costs a lot of money to run a campaign. Now, trickle-down economics is not popular, believe it or not. Nobody really likes it. Doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, whether you're Republican or Democrat. When you hear trickle-down economics or giveaways to the people at the top and cuts to needed public investment, nobody really likes it. The way they get away with it is by using politics of division to get away with it, divide and conquer strategy, which takes many forms. The most popular form in the South and in Louisiana is race dog whistles to get black and white people fighting each other distracted. It takes other forms, woke crusades, things like that, to get working people fighting each other distracted while they literally pick our pocket. And when you cut all this stuff in public investment, that you don't save money by doing that. It's not an expense when you cut those things. All right? You're actually costing a lot more, because public investment is the only way that we can grow our economy with people. I'll get to that in a second. Hello, how y'all doing? And what else it leads to is poverty. That's why we can't get out of this hole in poverty in this state. It leads to brain drain of people leaving their small towns. I remember growing up, a lot of these small towns that I remember that were thriving in the 80s are just shuttered up. And now that I'm traveling around the state, all I see is shuttered up small towns all over Louisiana. And, you know, it's a vicious cycle. And it's not one part. It doesn't just happen once. Because what happens was, whenever the people in charge, they see all the brain drain and they see all the poverty, they say, well, we got to cut more taxes. And that's what you're seeing right now with a lot of our governor candidates. Not Sean Wilson. He knows about this. But a lot of the governor candidates are saying, oh, we got to get rid of the income tax now, okay, which is the only tax that really reaches the top. So you notice a theme. Budget crunches lead to more poverty, brain drain, and their only solution is more tax cuts. And then it happens over and over and over again. And it's a downward spiral that you really can't get out of. And I'm running for Louisiana State Treasurer because I'm sick and tired of watching this, because I know what is happening. I understand how to get out of it, and I'm sick and tired of our leaders doing nothing about it. Even a lot of Democrats aren't even saying anything about it. And I've been a financial advisor for 20 years, like I said, and the treasurer is the financial advisor of the state. Okay, so they manage the balance sheet of the state, so they manage all the investments and everything. There's billions of dollars. All the state pensions, so if you're a state worker, is managed by the treasurer's office. And they also manage the other side of the balance sheet, like the loans and everything that go through the state with the bond commission. But one of the biggest things that they also do in the Constitution is they are the economic fiduciary for the people of Louisiana. So they are supposed to watch over our government finances and make sure it's being used for you. The treasurer doesn't work for the governor. They don't work for the legislature. They work directly for you. And it's their responsibility to make sure our economics are working for you. And that's why we have an economy. An economy we build for you. It's supposed to help put money in your pocket. And I've been not only have I helped the people I work with reach their goals, I also, am I okay to keep going for just a couple minutes? I'm sorry about I can get to the other part later.
No worries. But I did want to just interject two things. We do have a set of questions for you as
Cool.
well.
Great.
So along with your opening statement, all of the things that you're discussing, we're going to ask a few questions.
Great.
Before we jump into those questions and solicit that from the audience if they have any as well, I'd like to state that Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated is a 501c7 nonpartisan organization and does not endorse candidates. The forum is for educational purposes only. So we will jump into a few of the questions that have been brought in from the community as well as from within our own scope of practice with Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. So you've explained a little bit about the Treasury and what your plans are there. You've also given us some great educational tools to understand a little bit more about things that matriculate through that system. So what do you think are your best qualifications and experiences to qualify as the role of state treasurer?
Yeah, I believe the roles of the treasurer's office parallel my career almost perfectly because being a financial advisor, I'm also a certified financial planner. So a certified financial planner has an extra 2 years of studies that not only do we understand how to invest, but we understand debt management, taxes, insurance, a lot of things, and how all those pieces of your financial puzzle fit together. And that's what the treasurer's office does. So I've advised my clients. As a certified financial planner, I'm by law a fiduciary for the people that I work with. It means that I have to work in their best interest by law. And I'm the only candidate that we've ever had for treasurer that has been a qualified fiduciary and has experience doing that.
Thank you for your response, Dustin. How do you plan to manage the state's financial resources and ensure fiscal responsibility during your term?
Yeah, so two sides to that. So we have, like I mentioned before, the balance sheet. You have the assets on one side of a balance sheet. You have the liabilities on the other. So we need to make sure that on our asset side that is growing, and I understand how to do that. I have 20 years experience with investment management of how to understand economic cycles and how to invest for the best return. You got to keep diversified too. My opponents, I could talk about that later, but they're against some diversification. On the bond side or the liability side, we need to make sure and fund the things around the state, things that need to be fixed. We need to raise money for these things. On the bond side or the liability side, we need to, it's all about maintenance because all the public buildings of the state goes through the bond commission to raise money. So we need to keep the maintenance of it. We need protection. So a lot of the flood protection around the state is funded through the bond commission. And for growth, that's the third thing that the bond commission does too. So big companies that need to raise a lot of money to build something really big that they can't do on their own, like the Superdome or something. One company can't do that, so a lot of it is funded through the state. They take a loan through the state at lower interest rates. And a lot of big companies too. So if they need to build any kind of factory and they need help funding it, if we need to build a wind farm off the coast, a lot of that is help funded through the state. So we need to make sure we're funding business opportunities. They call it capital projects. We need to fund things that are going to provide us growth and bring long-term value to Louisiana and diversify us. We shouldn't just keep funding the same type of companies that we have in the state.
Thank you very much. How do you plan to prioritize the needs of Louisiana taxpayers? You mentioned a little bit about the governor candidates and their position on the taxpayers, as well as their thoughts and what they would do. So how would you ensure that the taxpayer interests are represented through the management of the state financing and the budget?
So the treasurer doesn't have direct control over the taxes. So that's the third thing that I mentioned earlier, where they're the advisor for the state. So every year before the legislative session, the treasurer gives a financial state of the state to the governor, and they deliver an address to the governor and to the legislature on what's going on in our economy. And the treasurer gives recommendations. So it's my job to make sure I advise them on what I think that we need to fix in the state. And I'm going to take it a step further as treasurer. Every year, I want to help sponsor a package of economic bills to make it better in our state. And with taxes, we have a very regressive tax structure. I mentioned it earlier because of trickle-down economics, where the people in the bottom 80, the bottom 90% of income in the state pay the most burden in taxes, okay, when you compare it to their income level and their wealth level. It's through the charts on how much they pay. So we need to change that. We need a progressive tax structure. We need to stop the giveaways at the top and invest more in the people of the state. And we need to cut taxes for families. We need to lower the sales tax rate for sure. We need to swap it out and bring back some of the taxes that they used to pay at the very top.
Thank you very much. How would you address the issue of Louisiana's high poverty rate and help improve the financial well-being of its residents as treasurer? And secondly, what initiatives would you implement to promote economic empowerment and reduce income inequality in the state?
Yeah, poverty is one of the biggest problems that we have. It is, I'd say, the biggest problem that we have in the state. We have the highest poverty rate in the state, and even the rate like right above poverty. You know, people that are still struggling but not classified as poverty. It's a large portion of our state, and we're struggling. So we need to reverse that trickle-down economics, or I call it gendonomics, because we need to start investing first in public investment in people, increasing our funds to health, education, access, and opportunity. And also what I've noticed, and was very, very alarming to me what I discovered earlier this year, because I went on a deep dive on, because people, I would say we need to invest more in people. I'd say it on social media, and I have people say like, well, everybody's on welfare, they don't want to work. So I said, okay, let me look and see what actually is happening in Louisiana. And it turns out that welfare has basically been eliminated in Louisiana. It's been pilfered by our state government. There was, in 1996, with the Welfare Reform Act that President Clinton oversaw with a Republican legislature, or Congress, they made change welfare to where it's block grants to each state, and each state can control how the money is being spent. First thing that was alarming was the amount that we get from the federal government has not changed since 1996. It's been $160 million since then. And, of course, inflation has whittled that away completely. And welfare first was meant to do three things: to give cash assistance to the needy, work assistance, and child care assistance. Those are the three main things. Of that $160 million that we still get today, only 11% of that money is used for those three things. Only 4% of people in poverty actually get cash assistance. It's being pilfered to plug budget crunch holes that, because of all the cuts that we've made to education and health and stuff like that, they basically pilfer that money and take it to plug a lot of those budget holes that they've made over the last few decades, which is just devastating to our economy. So I need to call that out and help fix that. There's a lot of other things that I have on my agenda, but I can get to those in the other questions.
So would you elaborate a little bit more on your approach to safeguarding funds and preventing fraud or misuse of the taxpayer money?
Yeah, and what I've also discovered is most of the fraud is happening at the top. You know, a lot of the people on the other side of the aisle like to say that all the fraud is happening in Medicaid and stuff like that, but it's happening with all these people that are skipping it out at the top with all these different shell companies that they have. There's some wealthy people that I've looked at. A lot of them have 10, 20 different shell companies that they hide money from. And another thing, too, that I think, I'm glad you brought that up, is there is a lot of tax avoidance by our big multinational corporations. So like Shell and Conoco, all these companies that, you know, they help provide jobs around here, but they use this shell game because, well, Shell or whether it's PPG, all of the major multinational companies, they have headquarters in different states. So they report and say like, well, we don't make that much money from Louisiana, so we're only paying this much taxes. Or they're lying about it. So one of the ways out of that is we require consolidated reporting. We want to see all of their tax documents, and then they have to prove to us how much of the taxes or income they generated from our state. Right now, we just basically believe in what they say, and they hide a lot of taxes. So that's one of the things that I would do.
Thank you. How would you support Louisiana's agricultural industry and ensure access to necessary financial resources for farmers and producers? And what programs or initiatives would you establish to promote sustainable agriculture and rural economic development?
Yeah, that's actually a key part of my platform is a small town and rural revitalization program, because of what I mentioned of our small towns being shuttered up. A lot of, because of our brain drain, people have left these small towns. So a lot of these small town mayors, and I've talked to a lot of small town mayors, they say we don't have the staff to be able to go and do all the paperwork with the bond commission, to go after a lot of these grants that are up for grabs. We don't know how to get them. So I want to set up a small town and rural revitalization team in the treasurer's office to help cut through a lot of the red tape, make it easier for these small towns, and be proactive and reach out to them so they can get the financing they need to rebuild their small town, their downtowns, to start attracting people, because they're having issues with simple things like water infrastructure and sewage infrastructure, little things like that they're having problems with, and we need to find ways to get them that access.
Leading into infrastructure a little bit more, how would you collaborate with other state agencies and officials to address the state's infrastructure needs and secure funding for necessary projects? And what strategies would you employ to prioritize infrastructure investments?
Yeah, that's a great question too. So that's one of the powers of the treasurer's office is the state government, the legislature, they make the budget. So I could influence that to a degree at the beginning and lobby for certain things to go in the budget. Also want a communications team at the treasurer's office to let people know what is actually happening at the legislature, because people don't know. So I would lobby for bills of what I think are the most needed infrastructure needs, and I've learned a lot about this from Shawn Wilson too over the last number of months. And then on the other side, so I can't make the budget. They make the budget and they set their infrastructure needs. But the key of the treasurer's office is all those infrastructure projects come to the bond commission, and I am the gatekeeper. So I set the agenda on the bond commission. So there's 14 members of the bond commission, and I'm the tie-breaking vote. But to even go up for a vote, it has to go through me. So I set basically the priority of the projects, and then it goes up for a vote. So that's where most of the power is at the treasurer's office. So yeah, one example that I heard Shawn Wilson talk about last night, he mentioned to me, is like our I-10 bridge, for instance. Like we're hearing that it's a toll bridge, okay? And they were trying to hammer him and saying, well, it's because of the transportation secretary. There's a toll. But he actually, there was a bill that was going through to make sure all of the money that we needed to build the bridge without a toll was actually in the Ways and Means Committee, and it was about to pass. And then it got voted down last minute. And Shawn Wilson said, why didn't y'all pass this? And they said, well, because we have a Democratic governor. We can't let him have a win. So those are the kind of politics that happen. So politics is a dirty thing, but I would one of the things that the treasurer needs to do is fight for things like that and call them out. If they got voted down, I would be right to the papers immediately of what happened.
So as we know, infrastructure issues lead to challenges that create blighted communities. What would you do to address the issue of affordable housing in Louisiana and to support the initiatives to increase access to safe, affordable housing and homes for all residents?
Another great question. So that's what the treasurer does, is also through the financing arm and the bond commission is help fund a lot of affordable housing. The treasurer is also the president of the Louisiana Housing Corporation. And some of our past treasurers, including our current treasurer, after talking to people that are on the Louisiana Housing Corporation, said he's been very not letting a lot of things happen. But that is very important to the people of the state. It helps improve our poverty level. And these are the things, when you invest in people, and that includes housing, infrastructure, education, all that, that is how you grow. That is what brings economic growth. People are always the engine of every economy. So if we keep cutting things and not investing and helping people with the capacity and the tools to be all they can be, we're losing, and we're losing money, and it's coming out of your pocket.
Thank you for that response. We have time for about 2 more questions. How would you address the issue of rising healthcare costs and ensure the affordability of healthcare for Louisiana residents? And what measures would you take to manage the state's healthcare expenditures and explore cost-saving opportunities?
Yeah, there's a lot of that comes to indirect power of the treasurer. So a lot of that's done at the legislative level. But, you know, it's my responsibility as the economic fiduciary of the state to fight for things that improve the economic well-being of people in the state. And that means fighting like hell. And pardon me, I'm in church here. Fighting for things that are right in this state and calling them out. So that's how I would improve it, by include, because we just, in our legislature, they made a big cut. They wouldn't restore a lot of the Medicaid expansion. And I think we just dropped 100,000 people, including, I think, maybe even more than that. I think it's like 50,000 children were just dropped from Medicaid a couple days ago. That should never happen. And people don't really know about it until they get the newspaper article, months later. It's my responsibility to call it out, pressure them, use it as a bully pulpit to pressure them, and if they vote the wrong way, then call them out immediately to the papers.
Financial literacy is one of the things that you opened with. You talked about trickle-down economics. What would you do to improve financial literacy among Louisiana's youth and prepare them for future financial success, as well as adults?
Yes. That's another big part of my platform. Oh.
Well, I'll start over. How would you work to improve financial literacy among Louisiana's youth and prepare them for future financial success, as well as adults? And what partnerships or programs would you establish to integrate financial education in the state school system?
Yeah, we saw the current treasurer did something good. I think he actually lobbied for a bill to increase financial literacy in our school system that just passed this year. So those are the kind of things that I would want to continue to increase, because people just don't know the basic of finances. A lot of the stuff I learned was even after college. Even college didn't even teach me a lot of the basics of economics and things like that, finance, and simple things like how to pay bills and balance a checkbook. So I think in investing, people need to know how to save and invest and budget and things like that. That should be basic skills that we have in school. So I would definitely lobby for more bills with that. But I also think that the treasurer's office should try to fund like a literacy roadshow across the state. I've done this in my own career. I had a podcast for 2 years that taught a lot of these basic skills. That's all free. Over on all the podcast stations, and every single week we did a different subject. So that's the kind of thing that I have experience in, and I care a lot about in the state. So I would promote it heavily.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your responses to each of those questions. We'd like to give you an opportunity now to have a 2-minute closing statement.
Yes. So I mentioned people are the economic engine. It's not what's under our feet. It's not oil or anything like that. The economic engine is always people. So whenever we do all these cuts, it hurts us a lot. So we need to reverse what is happening. It's a tough task, but we have to start now. And we can't afford to be set back another 4 years. My 2 opponents aren't even qualified for the job. One is a doctor. He was running for a lieutenant governor, and just Billy Nungesser left, so he decided to just run for treasurer, and he's a doctor. The other one's an insurance executive that doesn't really know parts of the government. So I'm the qualified one for the state. We can't afford to go back any longer. I have 2 little girls, 8 and 5 years old. I want them to be proud of our state, to feel accepted in our state, and want to stay and live here. And I will fight like hell for the rest of my life to make sure we have a better economy in the state. and I ask for all of your votes, and your help. If you can give any help, volunteer, donate on our website, please check me out and give me a shot.
Thank you so much, Dustin. Dustin did bring some push cards. They're here in the audience if you all would like to grab a few. He is Dustin Granger, number 37 on the ballot.
Thank you all.
Thank you all for your attendance. Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated appreciates each one of you and your sacrifice to be here today, as well as your sacrifice, Mr. Granger. Thank you so much. That'll end our forum for today.